Now what happened afterwards, what went on in Gaza this summer, I don't need to tell you about. There's plenty of people who were there, who documented it. Palestinian journalists and other international journalists on the ground can tell you about the horrors that they witnessed. But just the basic outline, you know, over 2,000 people killed, over half of them civilians. There were so many dead that they had to store bodies in fruit and vegetable coolers. Children's bodies they had to hold in ice cream freezers. And while this is going on, in Israeli society, the hatred is brewing. And so you go onto Facebook, and what do you see? You see Jewish Israelis changing their names on Facebook from Yosef Yehuda to Yosef Yehuda Mavet LaAravim. Yosef Yehuda, death to the Arabs. Ben Nuriel becomes Ben Nuriel, death to the Arabs. Then you go over to Twitter and you do a search for Aravim, the Hebrew word for Arabs, and you see people tweeting, "Stinking Arabs, may you die. Kill them already, Arabs are whores. From the bottom of my heart, I wish for Arabs to be torched. Arabs, may you be paralyzed and die with great suffering." And when I would click on these tweets to go to the profiles of these people to see who was saying these things, I was horrified to find out these weren't adults. These were young women, maybe 14, 15 years old, saying these things. This is how early it starts, and even earlier. Now, of course, there are Jewish Israelis who oppose the war. People who went out into the streets and expressed their indignation at what was going on. You had people protesting, like here, in front of the American embassy in Tel Aviv. You had Israelis protesting in front of army bases against the assault. You had people taking over street corners with signs, like here, again, I've translated it, "The occupation kills us all." But what did the government have to say about these anti-war protests? What messages did they give to the people while this is going on? So Tzipi Livni, who at the time is the justice minister or injustice minister in the Israeli government, she decides to go on vacation. I guess her services aren't needed. And while she's on vacation, she puts this on her Facebook. "I saw this horrible poster. It says Free Palestine. I managed to tear part of the poster." And then she uploads an image of herself, I guess, fiddling with it, trying to tear this Free Palestine poster. So the message is, this is the woman who's supposed to stand for law and order. And she tells the Israeli people, if you see a sign standing up for Palestine, you tear it up. You rip it down. And that's what happened. So yes, people did go out to protest the war. But this is what they faced when they got there. And so if you were a Palestinian citizen of Israel, the police just beat you up willy-nilly. Arrested over 1,000 people, held them for weeks and months even. And that's in Haifa. But in Tel Aviv, it was the protesters, mainly Jewish. There's a little bit more leeway because they have Jewish privilege, so the police aren't nearly as rough with them. But there, they don't have to do the job because there's gangs of thugs. Again, these are the Lehava street thugs. You can see by their emblems. And they went to counter-protest the anti-war protesters. And it wasn't just ripping up signs. It wasn't just beating them in the streets. You had these thugs actually following the anti-war protesters back to their homes. Quietly, carefully following them home and then attacking them in the lobbies of their own apartment buildings once they were separate and defenseless. And we can't expect that the police are going to provide any protection because they are at least as racist, if not more so. So you see this summer, Israeli police officers writing on their Facebook, "Your kids are terrorists like you. Die, every one of you stinking Arabs. Or this officer who wrote on his Facebook page, may another 1,000,000 Arab children die. Amen. These are the people who are supposed to protect us. And in Haifa, it was even worse. You had people attacking the anti-war protesters being evacuated in ambulances, and thugs chasing after the ambulances, trying to beat them up even more. You had the deputy mayor of Haifa going to an anti-war protest and being set upon by a group of thugs. And he says, the police were right there. They saw the whole thing. They witnessed it, and they didn't do a thing. This is the deputy mayor. And this is the reality. This is Israel in 2015. That the public space is being decanted of Arabs, of Palestinians. Groups of thugs will walk around the streets of Jerusalem and they'll ask people, Slicha, ma sha'a? Ashkhat sha'a? Do you know what time it is? And then as soon as I hear your response, and if you have even a shred of an Arabic accent, then I know you're Palestinian, and then my whole gang swarms you. And so we've come to the point where Palestinian people are hardly, if ever, going to downtown Jerusalem anymore. They realize, I'm not going to take the risk. I'm not going to get my head kicked in. And so these groups have set the tone and are slowly ethnically cleansing the city streets of non-Jews. Now, we saw the results of the carnage, how many people lost their lives, and everyone is much more than a number. Everyone has their own story. But while people are counting their fatalities, you have Israeli soldiers receiving awards for the damage they did. You have soldiers receiving mementos from their army units, photographs of neighborhoods in Gaza before and after, so you can relish in your accomplishments. And others who printed out t-shirts, deployed, destroyed, enjoyed, Gaza 2014. Surveys conducted at the end of the war consistently found that 95% of the Jewish Israeli population felt that the operation was justified. Only 3% said that they felt the army used excessive firepower. Now, let me just interrupt for a moment and say I actually believe this number is higher. The reason why is because we've come to the point where people are afraid to say what they really think and feel. If they are against the racism, if they oppose the war, they're afraid to say it. They don't want to lose their friends and family, and they don't want to lose their jobs. And that's a really legitimate fear. So I feel that maybe it could be up to 5% or even 10% or 12% perhaps, but it's definitely not 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. We're still talking about a tiny fraction of the population.